Right, some bad news on the development front. One of the parts failed quality control. We know how to fix it, but it'll take some extra resource. It's on hold for now, but you can order the extra work from the laptop at any time.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Aarava here, and welcome back to my F1 2017 career mode, episode number 70 today for the British Grand Prix for Season 4, and it's finally happened after 10 episodes in this season. Chris finally brings the bad news. Our part has failed. The upgrade, the major drag reduction upgrade we were going to bring to this episode has failed, so we're going to have to wait minimum till next episode then to get that upgrade. Obviously, only 1 week to repair it, but you can see at the moment we actually have insufficient R&D points to actually repair it straight away, so we're going to have to wait to potentially after qualifying or even the race for us to actually get that repair underway, because since it's a major upgrade, it's still half the points it was going to be the full price, so it's still quite a few points to actually get. So we're going to go into practice then and try and earn the said R&D points, but yeah, a little bit gutting not to have it for this race, because of course when we brought this same upgrade last season to the Renault, it really made such a big difference in the slipstream, trying to overtake cars, you know, being aggressive, you know, getting in the tow really made a big difference, as the drag obviously gets reduced in the slipstream a lot more than it does when you're not in the slipstream of another car. And you saw places like Spa, remember back to season 3, where the straight line speed was almost OP in that Renault of ours in the slipstream of Vettel when we overtook him through Blanchimont down to the bus stop chicane. So that would have really been handy down the back straight off Maggots and Beckett's really potentially, and also towards Luffield. So that's going to be a little bit annoying, but we've got a brand new rival, and it's the same rival actually that we had already before. So we lost that rivalry actually in the game. Vettel got 30 out of 30 of those objectives before us, so he beat us in that first rivalry, and since obviously we're right next to him in the championship, the game's just given us him as our rival once again. So not too bad, obviously kind of better than having someone that was further down like we had way too many times before in the past. You know, I remember so many times we had Felipe Massa or Esteban Ocon as a rival, even though I was nowhere near them in the championship. So not complaining about that, and obviously that will keep the kind of actual rivalry on track a little bit interesting as well. You never know, because I do feel like once you get a rival, that AI's rival does improve a little bit. They get a little bit of a performance boost, so you know, that'll keep things interesting for us in the career mode then. So we go through into qualifying. Overcast conditions, you saw, very easy and not much to talk about really in Q1. Obviously getting through as per usual, as you would imagine with the Red Bull car, and has been the case now for about 2 seasons now in the career mode. So we're going to move swiftly on to Q2, which is where the interesting stuff happens, of course, as once again we're going to go onto this alternative strategy. And unlike maybe last episode where it wasn't going to be a bog standard one stop for a lot of the guys around us, Silverstone around the British Grand Prix, I think the default that most AI will be going for is the 2-stop. So this time this really will turn out to be an alternative strategy. Really, if you think about it, at Austria, the alternative strategy was the 2-stop that Bottas did to win that Grand Prix, whereas this time round the alternative strategy is going to be the one we're going to be on, qualifying on the second softest tyre on the soft tyre. I'm going to go to the mediums then on that strategy, whereas you can see most people qualifying on the super softs. The only top guy also qualifying on the soft tyres being Valtteri Bottas and Kimi Räikkönen, so both Finns joining us on that strategy there. So both all three of us are going to potentially be on the same piece of tarmac, so that'll be interesting to see how we step up against those guys. Obviously the rest of them we're going to be trying to hopefully bunny hop them essentially and stay ahead by making one less pit stop. But obviously in the Renault that was very crucial to win this race last season. In the Red Bull, not too sure, because we should have some pretty damn decent pace, so I can't imagine actually we may need that advantage of one entire pit stop. I think we could go toe-to-toe quite easily with a 2-stop, but we're going to go for the 1-stop anyway, because that is going to be the fastest way around the circuit, I feel, especially if you look back at last season's race. That definitely was the way to go. So we come through then on our Q3 lap. It's actually our first Q3 lap. We go on to set a second flying lap later in the session. Of course, we've got the tyres available to us, having not used a set of super softs in Q2. Then we effectively bring in an extra set into Q3 for an extra run, and of course we're not even going to be using these tyres at the beginning of the race, so there's there's no point trying to save them or anything like that. So we come across the line then, and it is a major improvement on that second flying lap, and so much so it's going to be the second row of the grid in P3. So really solid job, especially considering Daniel Ricciardo's lap time there. I don't know what went on. It seems like he got caught up in traffic, because that really is a slow lap time compared to myself, and against Sebastian Vettel and Bottas, we're a lot closer there than Ricciardo ever was. So I think issues for him, but after qualifying session we do eventually have enough points to then upgrade the drag reduction, so that will definitely now come in next episode then for episode 71, thankfully. But yeah, second row of the grid, can't complain too much. We're alongside, I think that was Kimi Räikkönen then also on the set of soft tyres, and Bottas on the second in second place is also on soft. So we've got, all three of us, the only guys who set lap times on the soft tyres, all three of us are quite high up, actually. So that's going to be quite interesting if we can maybe get ahead, all three of us get ahead of Vettel. That's kind of going to put all of us in the driving seat potentially for this race, because Vettel being the only one ahead of the soft tyre runners on super softs. But he's the man on pole. Obviously, he did take the lead of the World Championship. So obviously, just like last episode, really, our objective is to try and finish ahead of him. Of course, at Austria, that was hampered a little bit by Hamilton. Hopefully, that's not the case this time around. So let's go to the full grid, and then we'll see how this race pans out.
We're almost ready to go then, and this is what the starting grid looks like for today's race. Sebastian Vettel has a clear track ahead of him today. He starts in pole position, and Valtteri Bottas will line up alongside. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have a Red Bull, Raikkonen, Lewis Hamilton, and Hülkenberg, Palmer, Perez, Ricciardo, and Esteban Ocon, Massa, Grosjean, Daniel Kvyat, and Sainz, Stroll, Alonso, Pascal Wehrlein, and Stoffel van Dorn, Ericsson, and Kevin Magnussen rounds off the grid. Now it's almost time to lights out, so let's go down to the track.
Right, so here we are on the second row of the grid for our home Grand Prix around Silverstone. Obviously, a fantastic time for us last season, winning this Grand Prix. Let's see what we can do this time in Season 4 with this Red Bull car. You can see that one stop in play, soft to the medium tyres. Pretty straightforward there this afternoon, and filling up a bit of fuel as per usual to use plenty of rich mix in the race to try and stay ahead if we can as we go to 5 red lights then for round number 10 of Season 4 at the British Grand Prix. And it's going to be an absolute stonking getaway from P3 on the grid. The same for Valtteri Bottas in P2, Vettel from pole. Bogged down. Here we go into turn 1. Maybe trying to make a move happen. Bottas has been tapped round, and there's a T-bone collision, and we've lost a little bit of our cascade element on the left-hand side of the front ring. Calamities for Valtteri Bottas, and pretty much calamities for us as well. We're just about to trying to keep this Red Bull in a straight line as we try and look for the place to come back on track safely, and we come back out in P6, tapping Bottas again for good measure, but Bottas spun round by Sebastian Vettel's rear right tyre, and a T-bone collision, and that could have been a lot worse. So I've got to count my lucky stars. I haven't lost my entire front wing, just a tiny bit of the cascade element on the left hand side, but that definitely is going to affect us now in this race, because into every single right-hander corner now we're effectively just going to be hit with a wash of understeer, and you can see what I mean straight into left field there, going a little bit wide as we try and defend from Jolyon Palmer, who got a really good run off towards left field there, but we've just managed to stay ahead of him in P6 then. But you can see just lightly there on the heads up display, the front wing is in yellow on the left hand side of that front wing, so every single right-hander, just like here, through cops, having to go a little bit wide, probably having to lift off way more than I want to, is going to be a bit of an understeer fest. I don't think it's going to be enough damage for maybe the team to think that we need a change, so I'm probably going to have to just try and adapt to this and live with the front wing damage for the entire race, unfortunately. But let's look at a replay now and check this out. So Bottas, like myself, got an absolutely amazing start off the grid. The soft tyre working well off the start, but there you can see complete racing incident, unfortunately, between Bottas and Vettel, so I can't really even blame Bottas for that, or Vettel. Just racing incident, Bottas and Vettel both going for P1 into turn 1, and just the classic kind of AI on AI kind of contact there as the tyres kind of interlocked, a little bit of spinning round, and it's just unfortunate. I got such a good getaway along with Bottas that I was so close to his rear end that when he got spun round, literally it was near impossible to try and get out of his way and not make contact with him. And if I'd slammed on my brakes, I probably would have got rear-ended by a car behind me. So either way, I looked like I was going to be screwed, really. So anyway, we can't dwell on it too much. We can't change things. So on lap 3 here, just trying to make the best of it. And as I said, having to adjust my driving style a little bit to the understeer and every single right-hander, having to just lift off that little bit earlier, maybe brake that little bit harder, and just be more patient on the throttle, as the car just doesn't want to turn in as much as it would do normally under normal circumstances with a full, healthy front wing. But now going to the village section, we're going to make a little bit of a dive bomb to the inside of Daniel Kvyat there. He's sent wide a little bit. We make no contact there, but he's put off, obviously, with us going down his inside and seeing us in the mirrors, probably. And now we're going to get a really good run as we go on to the next straight with DRS open, rich mix flowing on the left-hand side. This should be a pretty easy pass against the Toro Rosso, but the Toro Rosso is pretty slippery in a straight line there, and we have to wait until the brake zone just to get ahead. Kvyat tries momentarily to try and stick around the outside. It doesn't quite work out, and so we're up the order now. Right up the back of him is Jolyon Palmer. Meanwhile, up ahead in P2 is Lewis Hamilton. P3, Nico Hülkenberg then, and you can see Vettel has got a huge gap now in P1, so he really benefited from that spin from Bottas, because Bottas was basically a blockade for pretty much the entire grid after me. But now we've got Hülkenberg making a move around the outside, DRS wide open, and that's the Renault up into P2 then, and that's a pretty easy move for Nico Hülkenberg, and now he can be on his way to maybe chase after his fellow countrymen. But once again, Nico Hülkenberg looking very, very good indeed. Obviously, he got very unlucky at the Austrian Grand Prix, fell off the pace from what was a race lead in Austria, it. Let's see this time around if you can do anything better. But there is the man, Vettel, you saw going through Cops some way ahead of both those cars, leading the way, dominate this Grand Prix so far as we move into lap 5 then. In the same place we made the move on Danica Fiat, we're going to try the exact same thing on the Force India down to the village section again, just like with the Toro Rosso, going wide a little bit, but not so much so, and he's kept his composure a little bit more than Danica Fiat ever did. So now as we swing through in the left-hander towards the main back straight, as we're going to open DRS, obviously have Rich Mix flowing, get in the slipstream of the Force India. He's going to go defensive then, Ocon is to the left-hand side. We're going to try and swoop it around the outside then. He puts up a fight, we bang tyres on the left front there, but in the second phase of it all, as we swoop round into the actual merge into the actual left field section, we get it and we're up into P4 then. And so now we've got a huge amount of clean air, you can see on the minimap then, to try and chase after Hamilton, although it won't be the case. We're actually going to be looking behind us now. Raikkonen has made some moves and he's overtaken both the Toro Rosso and the Force India as they battle away with the other Force India of Sergio Perez then behind us, you can see in that panning shot. But we've got Raikkonen right up our chuff now as we go into Maggin to Beckett. So rather than looking after and chasing after P3, we're having to kind of worry about the car behind us. You can see just the amount of understeer I'm getting in that right-hander as we pull on to the main back straight towards Stowe. Raikkonen now with DRS. I imagine Rich Mix at this stage. He's on the left-hand side. I'm going defensive to the inside then. I'm going to try our best to stick it down the inside, but Raikkonen has all the grip in the world. Yet again, another right-hander Stowe, obviously, and he's able to get so much better downforce into that corner. So you can see where we are losing time at the moment. You know, it's sometimes hard to tell when you've got this kind of damage where it's kind of just subtle enough where it kind of looks like on board you're still going as normal, but you can't quite feel the lack of downforce. But in that corner, when you're side by side with another car, you can really tell the difference there. Raikkonen had such an easy time of it going around the inside, but eventually Hülkenberg comes in along with Lewis Hamilton for his first pit stop of the afternoon. Now both those guys doing a 2-stop, as well as this man Sebastian Vettel, but he continues on for a little bit longer than those guys then. And then in effective second place right now is Kimi Raikkonen on soft tires, remember, and the same with me in third place. So Raikkonen's already overtaken us, and he's the only other man at the moment in the top flight on soft tires, remember, as Bottas is way down the order now after that half spin. But now Vettel was in for his pit stop off the super soft tyres, so he's gone a lot longer than everyone else. So potentially maybe trying to also convert to a one-stop. We've seen in the past the Ferrari cars have done that before. I remember Vettel, Austria last season, did the exact same thing, converting a ultra soft tyre stint to the one-stop way to go. But you can see now, moving on to focusing on Nico Hülkenberg, he is behind there, 2 cars in between him and Sebastian Vettel. He's cleanly ahead of Lewis Hamilton, so still in the net second place effectively of the 2 stoppers. But you can see he's going to have to try and make some overtakes now on the Toro Rosso and the Williams car. He's actually going to make a fabulous move down the inside into Maggots and then round into Beckett. It's very close. I think the Russian just about held on to the back end of that Toro Rosso. It stepped out on the grass somewhat, and the German is up the order now. One more pass to make on the Brazilian in the Williams car, Felipe Massa, and now he's cleaning away with DRS open then as he goes towards Stowe, and he's back up into some clean air and chasing after Vettel once more. But you can see so far so good for Sebastian Vettel. He's got this all under control. Meanwhile now, eventually on lap 11, we are coming in for our one and only pit stop, of course, coming onto a set of medium tyres and going to the end of this race. Now, it looks like we're going to be just about probably around the same exact area we were in previously, so around P4, P5 potentially, depending on where on earth some other cars are, like the Force India cars, which were a little bit iffy. I'm not too sure what the Force Indias exactly did with their strategies, because the Force Indias, so many times they've surprised me by going a lot longer on softer tyres and then going to the normal kind of one-stop compared to other guys having to run harder tyres and doing the one-stop. So not too sure where they're going to be. And of course Raikkonen, I think, came in 1 lap earlier than me, or even 2 laps earlier for his pit stop on the one-stop. So Raikkonen going a little bit longer, or opting to go a lot longer on the medium tyres rather than taking the soft tyres a little bit longer. And probably in hindsight, probably should have done that as well, because I lost a bit of time there to the guys in terms of my delta time. You can see we're now behind Sergio Perez, so we lost out a little bit in the pit stop phase. And yet again, like I said, literally I said it, Force India again converting their strategy to a one-stop. Sergio Perez was on super softs, he's now onto a set of mediums and going to the end of this Grand Prix, so he's done some great work. We've got yellow flags up ahead for a car stranded to Cops. Hey, it's Sebastian Vettel! Oh my god, as we go off circuit, as the understeer kicks in, we have to avoid the apex of Copse as Vettel's stranded. He's got some sort of major issue going very slowly into Copse, and so yet again for about the 5 billionth time this season, Sebastian Vettel has issues in this race. You know, breaking the fourth wall again. I honestly don't know now what is going on with his AI car. I don't know what on earth, if Cody's have put in some coding to give Vettel's AI just instant bad luck at pretty much every other Grand Prix. But he's got there another puncher that is on the rear right then, and he's going very slowly indeed. You can see Hamilton was past there, and he goes gingerly across, trying to hobble around basically to the pits. And I think actually he does make it around to the pits eventually. But that means now it's Nico Hülkenberg leading the way from Lewis Hamilton in second place. And Hülkenberg's got a sizable gap to Hamilton then, looking good, but both these guys on, well, obviously trying to make the two-stop work. Meanwhile, Raikkonen is the only guy in the top three then on a one-stop on medium tyres. Hamilton on super softs. I think that was Hülkenberg on soft tyres, but both of them making another pit stop in this Grand Prix. And Raikkonen wasn't too far off them, so I think Raikkonen is pretty much in a prime position to take the lead this Grand Prix, and maybe looking a lot more comfortable than Hülkenberg or Hamilton ever have been for the race win today. So that's going to be very intriguing how that pans out. A little bit annoying considering we're quite close to Raikkonen previously, but as we go on through the laps then, lap 16 then, with 10 laps to go then, we're up into P4, finally some people making their final pit stops then, and Perez up into P3, so the Force India, very, very decent. You can see ever since we made that pit stop, we're just unable to catch up to the Mexican, so he's got some really decent pace now, which wasn't there in the opening stint. Meanwhile then, now we see the race leader, Nico Hülkenberg, coming to the pit lane, and I initially thought this was for his second pit stop, a bit of an early one, but no, you can see he misses his pit box, the pit crew aren't even out, and Hülkenberg, for some reason, has a penalty. Now, there was a virtual safety car that got called out after Vettel's incident, which, well, nothing really happened there, so you guys haven't seen it, but Hülkenberg, I think, probably sped under the virtual safety car, so that's why he's got a drive-through then, and so effectively he's made an extra pit stop then, you know, in essence, without the actual tyre change itself, obviously, and so he's now down the order, and so it'll be Lewis Hamilton who was out in the lead, but then he came in eventually for his second pit stop, and so it's Raikkonen leading the way from Sergio Perez in second place. I'm in third now in the podium position, but Hamilton may come to look and spoil that. As you can see, he's right up our chuff now, closing up on the soft tyres, but at the same time, only now are we now catching up to Sergio Perez. He's really slowing down. I don't know if his tyres have maybe started to go off majorly. You can see Intercop's really getting so much time there. Flat out from us commitment there. We're in rich mix as well to get away from Hamilton, but we go down the inside into Mag. It's so close to Perez. Just get across him, and we're up into P2 now, and he's going to hold up Hamilton quite a bit there, so that's going to be good for us. A little bit of breathing room as Hamilton now has to navigate the Mexican, but Perez definitely with some issues now. He's got DRS open, but he's going so slow through the corners, so I don't know if it is tyres, maybe it's a car issue, but he's going majorly a lot slower now, and he's down to P4, and so Hamilton into the podium position. So it's Raikkonen for myself to Hamilton, Perez for now, and you can see in the background there was a Ferrari car down the straight behind Perez. That's actually Sebastian Vettel, who's now been lapped in this Grand Prix, so calamities for Vettel, having to obviously hobble around with a puncher. And now we move on later into the race. You can see trying to defend from Lewis Hamilton. Meanwhile in the background there, that was actually Vettel trying to unlap himself from Sergio Perez, but we do a decent enough job to defend from Hamilton, although albeit going a little bit wide and track extending a tiny bit on the exit there, having to cope with the, again, right-hander of Stowe understeering still. And remember, I haven't changed the front wing, so still dealing with that damage to the car this entire race long. So on lap 22 then, as we move on into turn 1, Hamilton's got the speed through the last corner, and he's got the momentum into turn 1, another right-hander, and it's just another amount of time lost there. And unfortunately, I try my best to maybe make a cutback to try something against Hamilton, but it's just not going to work out. And unfortunately, this may have to be where our racing ends for today, and maybe where we have to settle for this race. I say that in a kind of somber tone, but really, let's be honest, we had a crash with Bottas. We lost a bit of our front wing. We've been driving the entire race with that damage, so to be honest, to get P3 is really, really awesome. That's pretty much the equivalent to a race win in terms of the race we've had today, so I can't really complain too much. Just like Austria, I mean, it could have been a lot worse there at Austria, so again, consistency has been key to this season so far. Meanwhile, we've got Esteban Ocon then overtaking his teammate Sergio Perez, so confirming there, Perez definitely with an issue, because now Ocon's come from quite far back down the order to overtake his teammate. Meanwhile, Nico Hülkenberg down the order at the moment, having even more issues in this Grand Prix, sparking away so dramatically as he goes into Copse, and he's got a puncher on the rear right, you can see, and it's flapping away, and he's still being so stubborn to go full speed into Maggott and Beckett, and this is not going to end well for him. Still sparking away on the inside right, and there he goes. He goes for a spin that you can just about see over the crest of that grass on the bottom right corner. He's gone for a huge spin, and he's off into the sidewall of Maggotts and Beckett. So really unfortunate for Hulkenberg. Already had the drive-through penalty, was down the order, was making up time actually. He was only behind this man now, Julian Palmer, and the two Force India. So unfortunate actually. Hulkenberg could have still come home for some decent points, but no, not to be the case. He's got a puncher, and so that's 2 punches in this race. So it's almost, you know, it's not as dramatic obviously, but it's almost like 2013 again here at Silverstone with the punches and the tyre issues on the rear right tyre there for Vettel and Hulkenberg. As now we've seen Julian Palmer overtake both Force Indias in this race to get up into P4 then. So fantastic stuff from Julian Palmer then. Obviously a double podium in two races in a row in episode number 68 and 69, and now episode number 70. Not quite the same thing, but still P4 Palmer has already been stepping up in that Renault, you've got to say. And also with Nico getting that bad luck, Renault probably need that. You can see though, quite funnily enough, Vettel overtakes us to unlap himself. Won't make any difference though. We get home on the podium here at our home Grand Prix. It's a British 2-3 then on the podium with Hamilton second and Kimi Raikkonen winning the Grand Prix. You know, it was quite apparent halfway through that race with him being so close to Nico and Hamilton and doing the one-stop. Raikkonen really played that, you know, like he would, like the Iceman he is, coolly as possible, and just waited for his strategy to pay off then. And we could have kind of maybe done the same thing. I mean, you know, it's just a question of where our pace would have been if it wasn't for that damage to our front wing. You know, we probably could have definitely been right there with Raikkonen, and we probably missed out on probably what would have been a very fun scrap against Raikkonen. But alas, those things happen in racing, and you can't change things. As I said, we can't dwell on it, and as I said, can't be too somber about it, because P3 after that contact into turn 1, fantastic stuff there, and we do take the lead of the Drivers' World Championship then once again, and Raikkonen now is up into second place, Vettel down to third. But you can see how close it is between the top 3, and Hulkenberg is still just about hanging in there in P4, but obviously this DNF will not help him against Raikkonen's points tally, as well as Vettel as well, so both of them losing out. Red Bull Racing still in second place, no changes in the constructors there, so we're still trying our best to maybe try and pull on Ferrari's thread, but Ferrari, to say they've been so inconsistent with Vettel, they've been still quite overall consistent with just scoring any sort of points against us two. Obviously, Ricciardo's been a little bit iffy since the Canadian Grand Prix, so a little bit annoying there in terms of constructors. But anyway, as we move on to the end of this episode then, as per usual, in episode number 10, or round number 10 of the season, we get a mid-season offer for a team change. But as you can see, the offers are Williams, Force India, and Toro Rosso. So obviously, we're not going to choose any of those. I'm very happy here at Red Bull. I want to try and win the Drivers' Championship if we can with Red Bull Racing. But, you know, you never know. Towards the end of the season, I don't know if those offers are going to be the same at the end of the season. Maybe we'll get some higher offers. But to be honest, I'm not too fast. Maybe that is an option we can do into Season 5. I mean, I for sure, you know, can be completely honest, if we do win the Drivers' Championship in Red Bull, I'm very happy to maybe go to a different midfield team and try what we did at Renault and try and bring them to success. Obviously, I've seen a fair few weird kind of comments, really. It seems like there's a you know, good portion of you guys watching, commenting below in the last few episodes, you know, thinking that I'm driving this and playing this as if I'm a real driver, wanting to just go for the best team and wanting to, you know, just win everything and dominate every single race. I want to have fun on this career mode. I just want to have entertaining races, have some fun whilst I race, and so that's why I came to Red Bull. You can see by the pace of the Renault, if I stayed in Renault, I probably would have had a very mediocre, boring season just winning most of these races, because of course Hulkenberg's AI has won 3 races now, or 2 races, I can't quite remember now, and so Palmer's AI wouldn't have been there. I would have been driving as Palmer in his car, so I would have been probably dominating these races in a Renault car, which is just not that fun. So that's why I chose Red Bull. Also, I like the Red Bull car. It's a nice change of pace and scenery. So just to kind of address some of the comments I've been seeing lately on the videos, at the end of the day, I'm going to pick teams that I genuinely want to race in, and I feel like it's going to be, you know, fun to actually do for 20 races. Obviously, these are long seasons to do, so if I'm committing 20 races to it, I want it to be, you know, fun the entire season long, really. So that's my thinking there. So maybe if we do win the Drivers' Championship, we may look into any of those 3 options that came up there at the end of the season. But for now, we're happy with Red Bull. We're in this title fight with Vettel, Raikkonen, and Hulkenberg, and I want to see this thing through to the end with Red Bull Racing. So anyway, guys, if you have enjoyed the episode, smash that like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. And do get subscribed for weekly Formula 1 content. I've been Aarava. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day. I will see you guys next time. Goodbye.